Good morning. It is Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Back here for Daily Shakeup number 614. And today I want to talk about a topic that applies in our businesses, certainly applies in our personal lives, and it absolutely applies in our communities and culture right now. We all know that we live in a world that's largely divided. In my opinion, more divided than I ever remember in my life. Now, of course, that's just my opinion. But the point of this is about opinions and what is an opinion and what is information and what is a fact and what is data. I see that too often we see things and conclude it's information or it's data or it's a fact without realizing that we don't know where it came from. And we end up forgetting that so much of what we conclude and start presenting as a fact or as data is littered with our perspectives, perceptions, and judgments. And yet we see it as and treat it as and communicate it as if it is actually fact. And we forget often about something called context. So right now I want to talk about context. So you can see the hat back there, one of the famous lines from Shakespeare. The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. So let's ask this question. Is it a fact that those are Shakespeare's words? Well, maybe someone else wrote it, but it's generally acknowledged that Shakespeare wrote that line. So let's call it a fact that Shakespeare wrote that line. And it clearly says, the first thing we do is kill all the lawyers. Right? And as a result, over the decades and eons, especially in the last 50 years, this line has become a way to deride lawyers. That's how it is typically interpreted and communicated. But it actually wasn't said by Shakespeare, it was written by Shakespeare. And in that play, the person who said the line was a character named Dick the Butcher. Now, Dick was not a good person. Dick was, in today's parlance, there's lots of different ways we could look at it. He was a gangster, but he was plotting to overthrow the government. Okay, that was his plan. He was going to overthrow the government, right? And this was part of his plan. So if you read the context of this line, what Dick the Butcher was saying was, hey, if we want to overthrow the government, the first thing we need to do is kill all the lawyers. In other words, he saw that the lawyers were in his way. They were protecting the democracy, the government system. Now, we could get into a whole discussion about what that really means, but the point here is, if we don't have context, we don't have meaning. And too often we forget about context, we stop seeking context, and we accept things as they are because they align with our belief systems. I can't tell you how many times in the last, couple of years, people have started off their statement by saying something like, I read. And then they say it as if that makes it a true fact. As opposed to, hey, I read something. I don't know if it's true. Or here's the one there's research on. Well, yeah, there's research on everything. And there's almost always research on multiple sides, right? So the point here is, it's not about right or wrong, but it is about being self-aware enough and paying attention to the fact that there are very few facts out there. There's very few bits of information that is provably true. Almost everything we're getting from the media is influenced by opinion, perspectives, and context of the writer or the person speaking it. This is not to suggest that we don't believe in anything, but be careful to know and start understanding the difference between facts and information or data and judgments you have made, opinions you have formed about that so-called information, facts, and data, because there's a difference. And that difference is creating more of our communication gaps and our relationship gaps than the information, data, or so-called facts. That's it for today. Keep taking care of yourself and everyone around you. And by all means, stay connected.